The world crime-fighting body Interpol has elected a controversial new president. Human rights groups accuse General Ahmed Naser al-Raisi of being involved in torture and arbitrary detentions in the United Arab Emirates. He's also facing criminal complaints in 5 countries. Al-Raisi will serve a 4-year term.
And did you have the feeling that...
Ali Ahmad was imprisoned in the United Arab Emirates for about 20 days. But the trauma lasts forever. He was arrested and tortured, he says, for wearing a Qatar shirt at a football match.
My teeth is fall down because of punch. I've been stabbed inside prison. I was very lucky to survive. I've been interrogated days and nights, all the time handcuffed, facing the wall, and it was very, very hard, tough time for me.
Matthew Hedges has a similar story. The Brit was in the United Arab Emirates researching his PhD when he was detained. He was accused of spying and held in solitary confinement for nearly 7 months.
They forced a cocktail of medication on me, which was like tranquilizer medication to keep me calm and sleepy. And they threatened me with physical violence. It's all very unsettling. I tried to commit suicide a few months later.
Both Hedges and Ahmad blame this man for their ordeal. Ahmed Naser al-Raisi is the Inspector General at the UAE's Interior Ministry. And as such, he's also responsible for what happens inside the country's prisons. Hedges and Ahmad want al-Raisi to be tried in court. Instead, he just became the new head of Interpol.
There is no reasonable conclusion to suggest that him or anyone from the UAE should be anywhere near the Interpol presidency because they do not abide by the standards of international justice and accountability.
Interpol met in Istanbul this week to elect a new president. It's the world's largest police organization. Its 195 member states commit to coordinating cross-border searches for criminals. If Interpol issues a red notice, an international arrest warrant, there is, at least in theory, barely a spot on Earth where its subject can rest easy. There were several candidates for this top job, but the organization elected al-Raisi. The UAE categorically rejects the accusations leveled against him. Interpol did not respond to the specific allegations. They sent us this written statement.
It is the General Assembly, Interpol's supreme governing body, which elects members of the Executive Committee. It would therefore be inappropriate for the General Secretariat to comment on any of the candidates.
Lawyer Rodney Dixon represents Hedges and Ahmad. He filed a criminal complaint here in Turkey against al-Raisi.
We are saying that the right decision would be to open a case and arrest him for these crimes, and then, where there's sufficient evidence, look to prosecute those crimes under universal jurisdiction here in Istanbul.
This is what Hedges and Ahmad hope for. The idea that the man in whom they see their torturer becomes the world's leading police officer is unbearable to them.
Let's get reaction from an expert in criminal justice. I'm joined by Bruno Min. He's legal director for the NGO Fair Trial. Bruno Min, thanks so much for your time. What do you make of this appointment?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to bear in mind is that the role of Interpol's presidency is largely a ceremonial, largely symbolic role. So the idea is that although this is a high-profile position, the president doesn't have an influence over the day-to-day operations of the organization, including decisions regarding who does and doesn't get a red notice, which is an alert used by countries through Interpol systems to track down fugitives for the purpose of arrest and extradition. But having said that, appearances do matter, and we have to take into consideration, obviously, that the head of the world's police, as far as the rest of the world is concerned, is someone who is being accused of torture. And we have to ask that question whether that's right. And whether the appointment of al-Raisi is sending the wrong message that this is something that can be excused, this is something that member countries of Interpol should be indifferent to.
OK, largely ceremonial. Then what will be Mr al-Raisi's powers as Interpol president? Some observers are concerned about him abusing the organisation's powers.
Certainly there have been certain reports in the past that certain presidents have attempted to use their positions in order to exert political influence of the organisation in ways that would violate the organisation's principles when it comes to neutrality and human rights. And certainly there were reports, unverified I think, that a previous president from China might have been attempting to do that. But as far as we're concerned, the role of the president is to provide guidance to the organization rather than being able to influence the day-to-day operations of the organization. And certainly, even despite the election of al-Raisi into this prominent position, we would expect that the Interpol's constitutional values when it comes to neutrality and human rights will be upheld. But given the controversies around what Mr. al-Raisi is alleged to have done, certainly organisations like Fair Trials and other human rights organisations will be keeping a close eye on the organisation in the next couple of years.
Do you see the threat of authoritarian governments expanding their influence over Interpol?
This is a very real risk for the organisation, especially when it comes to the issuance of red notices, which I explained are alerts used by countries to go after fugitives. Now, there's been growing concerns and there have been growing awareness of the ways in which these systems these tools can be misused by certain authoritarian regimes. Now, and we've seen cases where prominent political activists and recognized refugees in various parts of the countries, various parts of the world, have been targeted through red notices being used in certain cases as a tool of exporting persecution. And this is a very significant challenge, especially now more than ever, now that Syria has rejoined the organization as a full member. And of course, there are thousands and thousands of Syrian refugees living in exile in many countries in Europe, including Germany, who are now facing that very real risk that they too might be targeted.
All right, Bruno Min, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much for your time. Bruno Min, the legal director at Fair Trial.
Thank you.